Hello everybody, welcome to Whatculture. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Forgive my Spider-Man shirt, I didn't know this news was going to be breaking in the morning, but it seems like the Joker 2 or the Joker Folie à Deux is coming together, a Joker sequel that Josh knows more about than me.
100%. Late last night, early this morning, director Todd Phillips actually posted on Instagram the image of the front cover for the script for Joker 2, Folie à Deux, followed by an image of star Joaquin Phoenix like reading through it. It was very classy, you know, he was in like a little apartment or something. It looked very cool. So yeah, obviously now with that seemingly confirmed that we are going to get a Joker 2, speculation has run rampant as to what the title specifically could mean. Because if you're calling it that, everyone has kind of gone, right, what are you getting with?
It's the Fall Out Boy album.
Well, it's funny you say that, Scott, because I was really trying to make our boss let me make this entire video speculating on how this could be an adaptation of that album. Because that album absolutely rocks and is incredibly underrated.
The last good Fall Out Boy album, you might say.
Now the one afterwards is pretty good.
Yeah.
Not the point, anyway.
Not really the point.
We were reading some write-ups on this to kind of figure out what this title could be indicating, and there was a really good section in the playlist write-up where they wrote, quote, Folie à Deux is a French term and medical term for a mental disorder that affects two or more individuals, which already has fan speculation through the roof that Phillips will introduce Harley Quinn into the sequel. Folie à Deux is a pretty apt and perfect description of the damaged and toxic relationship that the Joker and Quinn have formed in various comic series. So that's kind of one of the big things I want to pick apart today.
Yes.
Do you think they're going to introduce the Harley Quinn character? And do you think that would be a good move if they did, considering we already have a Harley Quinn in another universe?
There's a lot of potential here. Now, I'll bring this back around to my initial reaction to that, which is, to me, they're not describing Harley Quinn and Joker's relationship at all. They're describing the core relationship between Batman and Joker. And as someone who is a lifelong Batman fan, point two, you look at some of the most seminal pieces of Batman media, or some of the most talked about ones, and they are the ones that psychologically dissect Batman and Joker, and the fact that they are codependent. I was recently replaying Arkham Origins on the video game, and in that you literally play through Joker's psyche as he realizes that he is indebted to Batman, and that semblance of order is what completes him as an agent of chaos. And that's a whole thing about Joker and Batman's codependency. So for me, it feels like that's what they're describing, and they might do something like a Serious House on Serious Earth. That was the comic that was quite a similar sort of dissection of, it was Batman, but Batman's brain. But still, psychological Batman type fiction feels like a cool way to go. However, I said I was going to bring it back to that, and then did my point anyway.
No, do it.
However, if they do, the amount of potential that they have, or the options that they have, obviously we do have Robert Pattinson's Batman, we do have Margot Robbie's Harley out there too. Margot Robbie is a massive fan of Harley Quinn. Obviously, she got the Birds of Prey movie off the ground, and she just seems to be up for playing the character and knows them inside out. So I think she would be up for coming back. However, I wonder how much it changes the tone of what they're going for, because all of a sudden you have this wider DC universe feel to what was, but even then it was always meant to be a one-off, and it was always that thing of Joaquin Phoenix saying that he would do more during the press junkets, even though initially it was meant to be a one-off.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's important to note that Joaquin Phoenix, according to the reports I was reading, hasn't officially signed on, so he's reading the script now, and presumably, if he enjoys it, then he's going to sign on for the proper sequel.
We can't do it without. What are we doing if we start?
I imagine they're giving him the pass at it, and if it's you don't like it, that's fine. Warner Brothers doesn't get their movie. But going back to what you said about Harley Quinn and more aptly the Batman, it's a big question for Warner Brothers, I think, because the Joker was such a success by doing its own thing and kind of moving away from the Batman character and just focusing on Arthur Fleck / the Joker. And yes, we had Thomas Wayne in there and a few other minor Batman characters, but you didn't need for it to be a superhero.
The Bruce Wayne stuff in that movie is
the
weakest stuff.
Absolutely, and you've managed to kind of carve out this universe. So to me, if they do add Harley Quinn into it, I wouldn't want them to bring Margot Robbie over. For as much as I love her take on the character and really like Birds of Prey especially, that to me would kind of confuse and maybe dilute what they have established with this film.
Yeah, there's also that whole thing where, I'm just speaking completely personally, I don't really like Harley Quinn and Joker's relationship anyway. I don't think there's that much positive ground you can cover. If anything, for me, some of the most seminal moments in Harley Quinn's overall arc have been when she discovered her own independence, and it's more about her. I cite something like Injustice 2, where she fights a mind version of Joker and realizes that she can survive survive without him. And again, if I cite the Arkham stuff, it's just because I've been playing a lot of Arkham because of Batman Unburied. Batman's the whole thing. That whole, arc that Harley has in, or her representation that she has in that franchise is very underpowered. It's very under Joker's thumb. There's a whole joke in there about how he's battering her and everything. Just not great material. So I would rather they did, even though it is, again, well-worn ground, something more in-depth with Batman and Joker as an individual. Yeah. I just wonder what you can do with Harley Quinn if you take the folie à deux as an indication of what they're going for.
Right. Going to Batman then, will they introduce yet another Batman? Because we've just had Robert Pattinson's take, which was, incredibly well received, did well critically and commercially. We've got the upcoming Flash movie, which is going to star Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman. Can you throw a fourth Batman into the mix?
Christian Bale.
Say, no, I don't think you can do that. I think, you don't need 4 versions of Batman in live action for as much of a fan as I am. You don't need Batman in this franchise, even though it might seem like the most obvious thing to do, especially with Robert Pattinson's version teasing the Joker at the end of that
cast
first
him,
movie.
right?
I mean, they've got Barry Keoghan as, the Joker, or it's at least proto-Joker, as Matt Reeves described him in that film, so they're clearly building up to some kind of larger role for that character, and I just kind of wonder how many plates they can spin with the same characters going at the same time. So for me, I would actually prefer that they didn't introduce either of them.
I know, right?
Yeah,
same really. For me. Well, that's kind of my core thing. Like I outlined with the Harley Quinn stuff and Batman. Like you said, the immediate problem is casting another Batman because in the Batman that we just got this year, Times a Flat Circle, there is another Joker in there, so that's potentially a whole other thing that was maybe going to go forward or whatever. But yeah, what's your core reaction to that quote? Like, what's your mind go to in terms of like what they're actually going to do?
Well, it kind of I'm going to quickly go on to another point here.
Yes.
Because for me, my initial reaction was looking at the end of that first film where, the Joker has been established and he's kind of, inspired this kind of cult following. There's the huge riots at the end of that movie. Oh, yeah. So for me, I kind of want to see Joker imitators. I want to see how that ideology kind of spreads and whether we have other people claiming to be the Joker, perhaps vying for his spot. Maybe the Joker in this universe isn't kind of one specific dude. It's a shared persona that's kind of passed down. Because I mean, the first movie ends, if I recall correctly, with the Thomas and Martha Wayne death. Like that happens on the night that everything goes down. So obviously Bruce Wayne is quite young, and if we're going to establish that he will eventually grow up and fight the Joker, it's not going to be Joaquin Phoenix's because he would be too old. Well, maybe it's a successor.
No, the thing is, I forgot about that whole fan theory, which I love, that the entire movie is in his mind. Because if you look at the clock towards the end of the movie, and there was a whole thing with the time that is on the clock at the various times you see, the various times that you see it, time is not passing normally the end of that movie. You can go watch, you can go read the whole fan theory thing about that whole movie being a dissection of what he wishes he could do if he was outside, assuming the Arkham or whatever it is, where he's outside of the therapy and stuff, and how he views the mentality that he's exploring across that movie, and how many people he thinks would latch onto it, and the reaction he thinks it would have. And I always thought that worked better than assuming everyone would just go along with everything he's putting down, etc. So I'm interested in that, but they'll have to canonize something now, because it was such a, potentially, because it was such a one-off thing beforehand.
No, that's absolutely true. There was that whole, unreliable narrator element to that first movie where you saw scenes that weren't real, like you mentioned. How much of this is he kind of just projecting? How much of this is actually happening? And if they do, go down a more comic book kind of accurate route, that would canonize a lot of stuff and make it perhaps more superhero-y compared to the first movie. But the reason I bring up the kind of idea that the title might refer to this shared psychosis almost between people who are inspired by the Joker and want to be the Joker is that I was reading a report in The Independent about this movie, and they reminded me that Willem Dafoe was actually talking about a Joker sequel a little while ago. He had an entire idea for this, right? And it sounds really good. In an interview with GQ, he said that his idea would be, quote, there is something interesting about, if there was a Joker imposter. If you had Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and then you had someone who was either imitating or riffing off what he did. So obviously everyone thought, well, Willem Dafoe, if you're offering to play this Joker imitator, why don't we have two Jokers? And for me, that would be a really interesting and unique thing to do, to have kind of the second movie be these two iterations of the Joker, played by two iconic actors giving it their all, kind of battling for this mantle, ideology versus ideology, who's going to come out on top. I think that would be quite interesting.
Well, that as well. Everyone's going to be jumping to Joker 2, but that would explain why it's only called Joker Folie à Deux, because then it would be applying whatever like mentalities that Todd Phillips thinks he's imbued within Joker. You then apply them to different actors' takes on the character, which I'm going full galaxy brain, because it's like a wider thing of that whole exploration that I think superhero cinema is having right now, of the idea of how much needs to be long-form storytelling with multiple installments, multiple movies, versus can you just give someone a single installment of a thing like the Batman and let that work just as well. Could you do this? Could this be a way to like ostensibly recast Joker and do a version of those core mentalities each time, but with whatever the actor brings to the table? Joaquin Phoenix was very much involved in the script writing process and the overall conception of this version of Joker, so doing the same with Dafoe, that would absolutely get me back in. That's way more interesting than is it going to be someone else from the canon.
That's absolutely, I fully agree. I think it's more interesting, I think it's more unique, I think it's more in line with what the original movie started. But yeah, I kind of want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What form would you like the Joker Folie à Deux to take? Would you like to see Willem Dafoe come in as an opposite Joker? Would you like to see Robert Pattinson's Batman show up somehow? There's so much stuff that could happen in this film. And I'm just hoping personally for like the most creative, most inspired version of it, because I thought the first one was alright, but I wanted it to go madder. I wanted it to take more risks and not just kind of rip off Taxi Driver. But let us know in the comments, and while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and also head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't, I've been Josh, joined today by Scott.
Cutting him off.
And we'll see you soon.
Every day.
Bye bye.
Catch you next time though. Woo.